After a very poor previous experience with inner ear monitors, I thought I had sworn them off for good. And then simgot reached out and asked if I would be interested in reviewing their EA1000s, to which I honestly replied, I've never reviewed headphones, much less IEMs, but I guess if you want to send them to me, I would give it a shot. And guess what? They actually sent me a pair. So in this video, we're going to talk about the 4 things that surprised me with my new experience with a pair of IEMs, which I think will be beneficial to anyone who's never tried them. But if you're an expert in all things IEM, I hope you'll continue to watch because I've got a lot of questions for you as I journey down this road with inner ear monitors. So 4 things. Let's start with the first one, which is fit. Now, I'll be honest with you and tell you my very first pair of IEMs were just a really cheap budget model that were extremely uncomfortable. They actually hurt my ears, and every time I tried to adjust them, they'd often just fall out. Now, I've been told my entire life that I have small ears, and I think that's probably true because even Apple AirPods bother my ears after a long time. They just don't fit that great, and they really actually, my ears will start to hurt wearing them after probably 30-45 minutes, which is kind of a bummer. And that's one of the reasons why I have yet to really dive into IEMs, because I assumed that they would just be uncomfortable wearing them. However, I found with the EA1000s that simgot provided a lot of options to ensure a proper fit. For instance, they sent 6 pairs of tips that are different sizes from small, medium to large. And I will talk about those tips a little bit more next as something else that surprised me. But what I found is that the small tips work perfectly for my ears. They were able to sit right down in there. The cabling on these IEMs is super nice, looped right over my ear without any trouble. And I actually found myself wearing these for over an hour, almost over 2 hours whenever I've been working from home and using them. So I found them to actually be very comfortable, a lot more comfortable than my AirPods. Now, I will admit to you that at times they do tend to get a little heavy, but that pales in comparison to the discomfort that I've had with previous IEMs or even my AirPods. So the first thing that really surprised me was just how comfortable and how well the EA1000s fit in my ears. Now, one thing I did start to overthink is, would I feel a little self-conscious wearing these out in public? I most only ever wear AirPods, and I think people are just used to seeing AirPods, but maybe not so much IEMs. So I took them out to my local coffee shop, and you know what? I was just overthinking it. Really, they were fine to wear, and I didn't think anything about it. If anything, they were blocking out the horrible smooth jazz that they happened to be blasting that day. Now, as you will see in the video, my favorite B-roll person, my wife, was there with me. And you may be thinking how rude it was of me to be sitting there testing out IEMs while she was also there and us not having a nice conversation. But after 20 years of marriage, let's be honest, she was there less for the conversation and more for the brownie. The second thing that really surprised me is something that I'm hoping people with a lot of experience with IEMs can give me some guidance on in the comments below. And that is this concept of tip rolling. Now, I mentioned earlier that simgot sent 6 pairs with the EA1000s, which I thought was really great. But it never really occurred to me until I was researching IEMs that you could change out these tips with aftermarket tips from different companies, and that could possibly help improve the sound signature, especially based on the way they would fit within your ears. This makes total sense because I'm familiar with the concept of tube rolling with preamplifiers or amplifiers where you take out the tubes and swap into other tubes and get a different sound signature. But it didn't occur to me that such a small tip on the end of an IEM could do the same. Now, I just did a little bit of research, and I think what I came up with the most, or what I saw the most, was a company called SpinFit that sold some just on Amazon. But I'm sure there may be some nicer brands out there, something on those lines. So anyone with a lot of experience with tip rolling with their IEMs, I'd love for you to give me some advice on companies or tips that I should consider buying for these that would help improve the listening playback. Now, before we talk about the other 2 things that surprised me with these IEMs, one of those being sound, I want to quickly mention that this video is not sponsored, but there is a way that you can support my channel, which is free to you, and that's simply joining my email list. It's the first link in the description box below. You can click on that and, like I said, join for free. Now, with that email newsletter list, I like to send things out a couple times a month. It's sometimes more information about a product review. Sometimes it's just behind the scenes to kind of give you an idea of what it's like when I'm recording these videos at home. And I'll even include links to products that I'm selling, whether it's from my personal audio collection or personal vinyl cassette CD collection, anything along those lines. So please consider joining that email list today. Now, the third thing that surprised me may not impress anyone at all, but it was really the packaging for the EA1000s I thought was really nice. Now, these are $220. You can buy them directly on Amazon. And packaging may not impress some people at all, but for me, there's so many IEMs on the market now that range from, I don't know, anywhere from $20 to thousands of dollars, that I do think packaging plays a part if you're going to start spending, a couple $100 on a pair rather than just a $30, $40, $50 pair of IEMs. So for me, I was impressed with the packaging. On the rear of the box, there are 3 frequency graphs for the filters included in this, which is something that I will talk about next when it comes to sound. And also they included a nice little carrying case here with a little magnet clip here that you can basically store everything inside. Now, there is one thing that I wish, and that is that this had been a zipper pouch instead, because in the bags that I carry, I just worry this is going to pop open accidentally and everything's going to fall out. And there are some really small little things in there that I don't want to have to dig through my entire bag with. Now, the last thing that surprised me about these IEMs simply was sound. And that's probably not a big surprise because my budget IEMs were terrible. They had no bass. It was like Treble Rebel punching me in the eardrum for 2 minutes until I started to cry halfway through a song and just wanted to throw them on the floor or in the trash can. And even with AirPods, I understand that I'm getting sound, but I also know that I could improve that with a nice pair of headphones or IEMs. And that's what I noticed, is that these sounded much better than my AirPods. Now, the thing that really surprised me was that simgot sent 3 pairs of filters that you can tune the sound signatures, removing the filters that are on the body. So there's only 2 filters here. The third's on the IEMs right now. And you can swap these in and out to change the sound signature. Now, that really surprised me. My lack of experience of IEMs, I'm not sure how common this is. And if it is it common at this price point of around $220? But I found these to be really interesting to listen to, and I'll talk about how these change the sound a little bit more. But first, let's talk about bass and Soundstage. Now, one of my fears with getting back into IEMs in general was bass. Like I said, that budget pair I had just sounded awful. Like it wasn't even there at all. And I may have assumed that that was just a trait with IEMs, just a general lack of bass that I wouldn't enjoy. What I found was, with the great fit of these, really sealing off the sound coming from other areas, it helped give me better bass response. Now, the bass with the EA1000s, I would say it's quality over quantity, meaning you're not going to get a lot of slam or thump with these, but you are going to get a very musical bass sound that's separated from the mid-range, and it's not going to give you a muddy playback where you can't really hear, all the parts separated as they should be. For instance, I listened to a song by Fortet called No More Mosquitoes, and I was actually just listening and this song came on. It really got my head nodding, and I didn't notice any lack of bass that I may be familiar with that song when listening to my regular 2-channel home audio system. And for me, when it comes to bass and IEMs, I just always feared that it would just be gone completely, or that it would almost be too much and everything would sound muddy. With the EA1000s, there was just a great quality to it and musicality that made me really enjoy the bass response. Now, when it comes to Soundstage, I'm hoping people familiar with IEMs can give me some feedback here. Because what I noticed is, again, this is my first pair of IEMs I've listened to in a very long time. And with Soundstage, I'm used to thinking about or listening to a home audio 2-channel system, and you can kind of get some depth where things may sound a little forward or maybe sound placed properly in the rear. And what I noticed with these IEMs is that that wasn't so much the case. Those sounds were a little bit more flatter, but what it did do was a great job separating the sound to the left and right channel. And part of me thinks this is probably just a common characteristic with IEMs. So anyone familiar with IEMs, let me know if this is the case kind of across the board. Now back to these tuning filters, because I do want to spend a minute talking about these, because I think of all the things that surprised me, this surprised me the most. Just the idea that you would get this many options with a pair of IEMs at this price point. So I really look forward to trying to determine the sound differences between each. Now, the way these work is this basically, the IEMs will unscrew from this plate, and you will unscrew a set that comes already pre-installed on the IEM body itself. And you simply just unscrew those from the body and screw the new pair that you would like to listen to on. Now, these all come with different rings underneath them. That's kind of how you tell them apart outside of this obvious gold pair here. But the other two are silver, and the way you can tell those apart is one has a red ring and one has a black ring. So when I'm talking about how these filters sound different, I'm going to be referring to them as red, black, and gold. I also think it's worth pointing out that I want to describe to you how these filters sound to my ears. I think we all know that they would sound differently to everyone's ears because of the way they impact that upper register. We all have different sensitivity levels when it comes to listening to music. So the ones I prefer may not be the ones you prefer. Now, one song I listened to with every single filter was When Will I Be Loved by Linda Ronstadt from her album Heart Like a Wheel. Now, there's a great vocal performance by Linda in this song with a lot of great background vocals as well. But there's a guitar solo that comes in right at around the 1 minute mark that can sound really punchy, like it comes out of nowhere. And what I noticed with listening with each of these filters is when that guitar solo comes in with the black filter, that it was sharp and edgy and kind of bright, little uncomfortable when it first arrived. Now, the gold filter was able to bring that back a little bit so that it wasn't so bright and a little more comfortable to listen to. I preferred the red filter with this song because I think overall it sounded more musical and more comfortable to listen to. When that guitar solo came in, it wasn't sharp and edgy. It mixed right in with all the other music. And again, it just made everything comfortable to listen to. I then decided to change things up completely and listen to Symphony of Destruction by Megadeth, because in that song, the chorus has just sort of a different, in my opinion, sort of a different frequency range. It's like there's like a good metal song chugging along, and then that chorus hits, and it just peaks in a way that can be uncomfortable. And what I noticed again is that when the chorus part and the guitar solo comes in, the black filter again was uncomfortable to listen to, sharp, edgy, bright. Again, the gold filter brought that back a little bit and made it a little bit more comfortable. But just like Linda Ronstadt and Megadeth, I found the red filter to be the most musical for me. It's almost like it blends it better with the mid-range, that treble, so that it doesn't stick out as much. Now again, I want to point out that this is how my ears heard these filters. What would be interesting is, and what surprised me again about these IEMs, is the ability to be able to swap these filters out with different tuning capabilities for every individual that buys this who will have their own listening preference. That was something that surprised me because every other pair of IEMs that I've seen on the market, and those are more budget ones, typically they don't have this option. So you get the sound that you get. So to be able to tune this for everyone's ears, to me, was pretty interesting. And I think that if you were to buy the EA1000s, you would possibly find a different filter that you enjoyed more. I also think that the filter kind of depends on the style of music you're listening to. You may find that you like the gold filter with jazz, or the black filter with classical, or the red filter with metal. I don't know, but that's what's great about having these filter options with the EA1000s. Well, those are the 4 things that really surprised me about my new experience with IEMs. I want to thank SymGot for sending me the EA1000s. Full disclosure, they sent them to me for free, but they did not pay me for this video, and all of my thoughts and experiences were my own. Now, I would love to go down a rabbit hole and consider trying out more IEMs. So anyone with a lot of experience, please let me know your favorite pair in the comments below. Might be something I want to check out and do a comparison with these IEMs. And just try to start determining how these differ over the price range. Now, these things surprised me, but another thing surprised me last year, and it was just what my favorite piece of gear was, because I really didn't expect it to be this one item. If you're interested in watching the video of what surprised me the most last year of all the gear I bought, you can do so by watching this video here.